that somewhat without a downrigger, like using?
You can do it a couple ways.
Like one of those, kind of like a slow weight and then have something.
It's called a poor man's downrigger. That's how we used to fish. You got a cannonball weight here, 6, 7, 8 ounces, whatever it is. You run up off your dropper 4 or 5 feet, then you tie back here. Your main line's coming up, and then you attach your bait here. You can do it that way.
How many ounces?
It just depends.
3, 4,
Whatever. I just look at how fast I'm going to how much angle I have. If I'm blowing up, I know I need more weight on there. And this is a crapshoot. Typically, when I do something like this as a kid, I'd hook it up, put my weight on it. We'd start out, we'd go over to a shallow area, and I'd just start trolling back and forth until my weight hit. And I could go, well, at this amount of pulls, I'm hitting it 38 feet to give myself some kind of an idea. Because if you don't, you just go out there and it's just a guessing game. You don't know where you're at. You got to have some idea where you're at to make consistency. To just go out there blind and throw it out. Just go over to the shore, look at the graph, start out at 50 feet and start making your assessment got to be about 35 feet. And just start making passes until you start to get that thing to hit. Maybe you got to let out some more lines. And you always got to count. You know, before counter reels, it was 1, 2, 3. You know, counting it out there. Because if you got a hit, you brought it in, you needed to get it right back out again to that position. So that's how I would test it. I'd just drag until I hit bottom.
Leaded line like colors to just count colors?
Well, you would, with this setup here, you wouldn't necessarily want to run leaded line. Leaded line's bulky, big diameter. It's going to take away from the cutting power of this. You want to run like a braided line for this, 14 pound. Braid's going to cut through there real sharp. It's not going to cause additional drag.
Lead core, 18?
Lead core, yeah, and we'll talk when we get to the trout thing. But yeah, typically what I run is 18, unless we're fishing deep, then I run heavier. What you have to realize about lead core, guys, one of those things, well, I've got this pound test or this pound test, what's going to work? If you go down to Roosevelt and those fish are down where the planer board's just a little too tall, like say middle of the day, they've gone down a little bit. What you can do is if you have a lead core line, you don't want a really heavy lead core in clear water when you're fishing just underneath the surface, because what happens? I put out a few feet of it and it's dropping. So now I'm in the wash of that boat. Like an 18 pound, I can put out some line to get it out there and away from the boat, so I'm still 175 feet back or whatever, but I'm down to where I need to be. I'm not going past where I need to be. If I was doing Lakers, fishing deep, like trying to get away from cannonball setup, I'd use the heaviest lead core I could get my hands on, because I want it to drop down without having to go back a country mile. Because once you get down about 20, 25 feet, they don't care what's going on up above. So that's the differences in the lead core. You know, for that shallow rainbow fishing, that 20 feet and up, the lighter the better, because you get more of it out. It gets away from the boat.
I heard that lead core, the lead that was in the line is the same, no matter the poundage. Just the weight of the braid that's around it.
If you take and pull the cores out of there, I don't know about that.
No, they're different diameter.
Yeah, the cores.
36 pound is, well, I don't know how many millimeters it'd be, but it's a good twice as long in diameter as a 15 and 18 pound.
Yeah, if you take and pull it out, pull some out, you'll see it's heavier.
Well, if you tie that knot, where you pinch out a bunch of,
right,
peel it back, run your line and do an overhand,
right,
and do another overhand.
Right.
So you pull it out. I've done it for everything from 12 to 36 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
There's a marked difference in the diameter of the lead.
Yeah, lead's much bigger. Yeah.
Why did it say wrong on the box?
What's that? Like I said, if you look at it,
Wrong on the box.
yeah, it's not the same when you pull a chunk out of there. The stuff that I've used,
Yeah.
yeah,
Look at it.
No.
yeah, I don't. The stuff that I've looked at's not like that. Oh. Then you could do the banana weight setup, guys. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to get the offering down. With the lead core line, the thing you need to keep in mind, guys will do this a lot. They'll run the bigger stuff. They'll say, well, here's my lead line stops. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put 100 feet of leader out here. Well, what happens is it starts to belly. Usually about 50 feet is good enough. The deeper you are, the closer you can get. So with a Laker, you may only need to go 25 feet. Because you want it to be pinpoint. You don't want that big sway, that big belly going like that.
25 to 50 feet.
25. At Roosevelt, guys, for the rainbows, we run 50 feet. Always 50 feet. We run out about 173 feet total for that October, November bite time. That's 50 feet of leaded line. The rest, 123 feet, or excuse me, 123 feet of leaded line, 50 feet a leader. What's that? Yeah, well, the rigger, you might go, you know, it just depends, Ken. If you're deeper, you can get away with less because there's less light. You can get away with less distance. Typically, what we'll always run off the rigger is around 50 feet. The lead core is not as much a disturbance as the cable going through. Okay? On the lead core line, if I'm fishing deep with lead core line, running the heavier stuff, 25 feet, I want to get it down, those fish aren't going to be afraid of that lead core. Roosevelt fish, when I'm fishing that top 20, it's 50 feet. What's that? 10 feet. What's that? No, rigger I'd still go about 50 feet. Just because the cable is zinging through there. Yeah, and see with the salmon, Ken, the salmon you can go 12 feet back. They don't care. You know what I'm saying? It's a lot more aggressive fish. We were talking salmon in the ocean. I had a guy send me a nasty gram the other day. I always love getting those. He's all mad at me, telling me that I'm an idiot, which he could be right. My wife says so. He's telling me, because if you saw the salmon show that we did down at Brewster, I watch, once again, because I'm weird, every plug that comes out of that boat, when I go down there fishing, my rods, my reels, they all get washed. Everything gets washed. Non-ultra lemon detergent. Always. I put new line on. When I get down there, I pull my plug out of the boat, make whatever modifications I make to it, I hook it on, I get my brush out. I clean my swivel. I scrub down my plug. I rinse it in the lake or the river, Columbia. I take my smelly jelly, put a little bit under the bill. I set it in the water. I am the only guy touching the plugs. Salmon have a very keen sense of smell. This guy sends me an email, says, you know, you're doing all that, that doesn't matter. There was a guy 30 years ago did a DVD, and he took his plug and he threw it in the bottom of his boat where all the oil and gas is at, and he caught salmon on Vancouver Island. Saltwater fish, you will never see me wash my hands. I will be eating sandwiches. They don't care. When they get in the river, they care. They're not eating. There better not be any falses on that thing. That's the difference. Sense of smell. Tell you how keen it is. The guy that we went with pulls out his rod. He's got braided line on it. Been sitting in his boat. Been down there for 2 days. Hadn't caught a fish yet. Says, here, this is the plug that works. Black herringbone 090. He's got this hunk of yarn tied on there. What is this? Well, I take a bunch of jelly and I smear it on there and then I throw it out. He watched me. He's like, what are you doing? I said, I'm getting this thing set up. He says, well, how come I haven't caught fish? We went down there, what did we get, Mickey? 3 or 4 fish that first day? 4 or 5 fish. Well, maybe it was good. He says, well, he starts asking, well, what's the deal here? I said, you see that braided line you're using? All that thing smells like, to me, and you can smell it, is fumes from your boat because it's cloth. That's what was throwing the fish off. On top of him having an old nasty piece of yarn tied to his plug, thrown in his box. So don't tell me the scent's not important. But ocean fish, getting back sidebar, a lot more aggressive. Okay, close. We don't go a long ways behind. A lot of times you're fishing amongst 400 of your best friends that don't know how to drive a dang boat, cutting you off. So if you got 50 feet back there, you're losing lures all day. Okay, a little different. That's the basis of that, Kenny, okay? All right, guys. Boys are telling me we need tape. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll get back after it.